Hey Soul Tribe, thank you for joining Jake and myself tonight. I'm so happy to have the lovely Jake Ray here from Ray of Light Hypnotherapy. And we can see his lovely husband Corbin here as well, which is so nice to have the two of you here. And yeah, I feel like I've wanted to have you on the Galactic show for a while. You've been on my show and I absolutely love your work and I love your YouTube channel and things. So nice to have one of our Soul Tribe that we see in the comments behind the camera. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing so wonderful. It's so great to be here, and I'm super excited to be here with you, Soul, and with Soul Family, and to be in front of the camera this time.
Yeah, it's a nice treat to have you in front of the camera. So, for those that haven't seen your work or seen the show that you and I did together, I just want to read out your bio. So, Jake is a certified hypnotherapist. He's trained in quantum healing hypnosis technique from Dolores Cannon, who I'm sure a lot of you know, past life regression and future life progression with Anne Durich. I know I had trouble saying her name. Can you just pronounce her name for us?
It's Anne Jersh, yeah,
Thank
Jersh.
you. And she's and you've been inspired by many other hypnotherapists, healers, and mystics. Hypnosis has transformed your life in so many ways, and you love to help other people find this transformation for themselves. In honor to guide it's an honor to guide clients through these quantum experiences and help them connect with their own higher guidance and wisdom, as well as finding help and deep soul growth through hypnosis. Is there anything else that you want to add to that? Because I know that you have so many fascinating clients.
There's so many different avenues and different ways that hypnosis can be used, and even past life regression can be used in so many different ways. And I think, I'm so happy to be here on the Galactic show because ETs and intergalactic and multiversal experiences are some of my favorites to explore with clients. And I've definitely gone some wild places in the cosmos, and I think that those types of experiences are not what you necessarily think of when you think of past life regression, but there's so much valuable information to find in all of those different places. So happy to be here, happy to share in this, and really excited to talk about the future today because that is another side of what I do.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear because there is so many people, whether it's remote viewing or future broadcasting and or forecasting and things of that sort of nature. Before we sort of get into the future side of things, I just want to mention that you did have a conference just a few weeks ago, and you were speaking at the Future Vision Summit, which people will be able to go find over on the YouTube page. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. It was indeed talking about ETs and really focused on the future of humanity and where we're going incarnationally. There's a lot of discussion out there and ideas of what is next, and I think a lot of people who are incarnated now feel that there's something else and that they're going on to something else. And so I talked a little bit about what those options or what those possibilities might be, and including off-world, including ETs and interdimensional places, and even light bodies and going back to source. And there's a lot that I got into, and I was able to do a meditation as well, guiding people to see their own future off-world. And so it was a really cool event. I mean, the other speakers were wonderful as well. If you go to the Future Vision YouTube page, you can find it. Also, feel free to reach out to me if you need to find that as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I just
Mhm.
want to pop up your YouTube page, or sorry, your website, and I will go get your YouTube page. We had some technical glitches right before we started tonight, everyone. So I've had to reopen very quickly our little windows. So bear with me, and I will just let me pop this up. You could just see my dyslexic brain work firsthand. Here we are. So Jake Ray Hypnosis will be how you find Jake's YouTube page. And you can see he's done sessions around lifetime as witches, which we talked about on my channel. That was so much fun. I love that topic. And you've done so many different things from energy worker to light bodies. And you really get into also talking about the background with QHHT. It's always a bit of a mouthful, that one.
Right.
And you do offer remote hypnosis. So let me just bring it up. So for those of you wanting to book a consultation, we have that right on the first page. You'll find that. And you'll also find a little bit more information around Jake, what hypnosis is. And I just want to remind you guys, if you are watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up because it does help the algorithm to send more of our amazing content your way. And we also have, Sophie has the love reading. So this is a special only until Valentine's Day. So save 10% with the code Valentine. And I also have a couple of spots available for next week. So the Mystical Oracle session has probably been the fastest way I've been able to help people at the moment. So we're doing a lot of clearing type stuff that are coming up within the readings, and especially also because we are about to go into a Venus retrograde. So there's a lot of relationship questions and things that we're working with at the moment. But I'm also doing the ET side of things with the starseed reading as well. And it's hard to pick a favorite, but do you have a favorite topic that you work with clients?
It has to be the ET side of things and interdimensional. I mean, I kind of view them as interconnected topics if we're talking about dimensional possibilities as well as ETs. But I think that is some of the coolest stuff, and really getting into that cosmic perspective and getting off of the Earth. Because I mean, there's so much value in exploring Earth incarnations, and and yet it's just fascinating to get outside of that and to get so far out of what we're comfortable with and what we know, because there's so many possibilities out there.
Oh, awesome. So let's deep dive into this future timelines. I just want to share quickly. In a few sessions, I've had some timelines come up. And then when I saw the movie, I think it was Tomorrowland, which is the Disney one with George Clooney, it looked actually very, very similar to some of the things that I'd seen. So that was fascinating. So I would love to hear your experiences with clients. And I think Lyra's coming to join us to have a listen.
Yes. Hello, Lyra. Hello,
Say hi,
baby.
Jake. Hi, everyone.
Oh my gosh, she's too cute.
She is gorgeous. So yeah, what would be, I guess, the one that sticks out as being the most memorable?
I would have to say the lifetime, and I did make a video on this, so you can go check that out on my channel.
Awesome.
I had a client who went into a future lifetime as an angel, and it was a surprise to both of us. We, with the techniques that I use with going into the future as well as the past, I really leave it open to your higher self and to what is most appropriate to come forward. And so it's always a surprise what does come. But in this session, this client went into a future lifetime as an angel, and it was really wild because they were talking about the work that they were doing, and they were working with energy and transmuting higher dimensional energy down through the dimensions into a usable format for the Earth. And they described their surroundings and where they were as above Earth in like a cloud city essentially. And it was so cool because they described like the buildings and everything was made out of these clouds, but it was all thought form. It was built and constructed and all from their thought. And when they were working with this energy on the Earth, because the Earth was definitely changed from how it is now. They described it as kind of a desolate wasteland of volcanic, cracked earth and lava everywhere. And I asked them if there were any humans there, any beings there. And what they described was that most everyone had left. That included humans, that included all of the other dimensional beings that are assisting Earth. There was very few people left at that point. That these angelic beings were some of the few that were left, and they had stayed because they were doing such an important job, and that they wanted to stay and to help the Earth to recover. And it was clearly really important work, and the joy that this client expressed in the work that they did in their environment and in that higher dimensional space. I mean, it was really beautiful. It was fascinating too, because they said that there weren't any humans left on Earth, but there were this type of like hybrid being, and they didn't know exactly what was going on with these beings, but they were definitely of a lower vibration, hybrid type beings that really were not living a great life on the Earth, and that was part of the reason these angelic beings were doing the work they were doing, trying to help not only the beings that were left on the planet, but also help the planet to recover. And yeah, it was very fascinating.
I'm sure you're probably like sitting on your edge of your seat, taking notes, like as your client's talking about all this. And it's
Hmm.
interesting with the galactic sessions I do, we have galactic angelics come up. And a
Hmm.
lot of the time, it is these higher frequency beings that are stepping energy down. So it's like they have to hold codes or hold light from a certain dimension in order to infuse it into our realm of frequency. And they do, they keep the vibe high. So I
Hmm.
love it when you just get those things that match up or synchronize between, people, whether it's, in a reading or if it's like working with hypnotherapy and someone who may not have even thought about like life as an angel or things like that coming up. I think that's the funnest thing when you see in hypnosis, your clients like recalling these other lifetimes and things. And it's just the way that they recall it. Sometimes it's like listening or watching a movie.
Oh, very much so. And it's not always visually a movie for them, but uh, the ways that the narrative plays out and the information that comes through is just it's oftentimes surprising to everyone involved. And those, I think, are some of the most powerful moments too, when you're going through a hypnosis session and you're surprised by that information, you're surprised by what comes through, and it just goes to show, the vast amount of incarnations that you have likely had, and the ways that information, is going to show itself and reveal itself when it's necessary, and in a way that is helpful to you.
Yeah. Oh, and I just want to share, Tim put a really good comment. So Tim said, I had a great journey recently doing Jake's new meditations. So we do encourage you guys to go and check these out. And you will find it on his YouTube page. And it will be, oh, this is the photo of us
Hmm.
from the one on my channel. Underneath, you'll see Alien Incarnations meditation. And you've got a few on that playlist as
Hmm.
well. So please go and check them out because yeah, I find your voice very relaxing. And I imagine, like in hypnosis and meditation, it would just be so easy to drop off into those other places and other realms. So I can't wait to play with that later. So thank you for putting those up.
Oh,
What would
absolutely.
be, oh, sorry, what would be another like memorable one that sticks out in terms of future timelines?
Well, this was some information that came through in a past life regression, and it was a fascinating session, as everyone is, but the client was actually not shown any past life. They were shown their current lifetime, and they kind of went through a review of their childhood and some big moments from their adolescence and into their young adulthood. And this information came through when we were talking with their higher self. And if you're familiar with my YouTube, or my work, or QHHT, the higher self is such a powerful ally in this type of work, and I really prefer and love to work with them throughout the session. But in this session, the information that came through was around actually this year, 2025, and some ET disclosure that they clued us into. And it was fascinating because this client had literally no idea about aliens. It was not on their radar. They were not, I mean, they were somewhat interested, but it was definitely not a topic that they had explored or knew much about. And so when this information came through, we were both surprised. They, when we talked about it afterwards, they were just a little bit confused on what they were talking about and wanted my intake. Anyway, what the higher self said was that in this next year, in 2025, the ETs, the beings that are among us, they said that they'll be revealed and that they'll be returning home. And I wanted to clarify. I wanted to make sure that I understood correctly what they were saying, because if you know about human incarnation, we can incarnate from a lot of different places to the
Yeah.
earth. And, we talk about star seeds and the different origins, different places that we can come from. And so I wanted to make sure that they weren't just talking about star seeds. And they said the phrase, those in their form on this planet. And so the ETs that are actually here physically amongst us. And it was fascinating too, because they said that some of them were disguised or would look like a normal human to us. Others don't. Some of them interact with us, some of them don't. But the biggest message that they had around this was that these beings, they have completed what they came to do, and since their job is done, they're going to leave. And I was, asking questions, and my favorite phrase that they said was that this planet is not that comfortable for most beings in the universe, which
True statement.
Yep. I think a lot of us can resonate with that too, even though we are incarnated into human bodies. But all in all, it was just very fascinating for this information to come through. And they furthermore said that, not everyone's going to believe, which checks out. That makes sense with the state of the world and the bifurcation that we're going through at the moment. But the message that they really left us with, and that they really pressed was that we shouldn't be fearful, that we shouldn't fall into fear, even though that kind of a statement can trigger fear in some people, and even ETs can trigger fear in a lot of people based on their own reactions and their own interactions as well. So yeah, it was really fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. And I bet you would just wanted to ask more and more questions to go further down that rabbit hole with that, especially because it's talking about this year.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, sometimes the challenge for me is staying focused on the client and making sure that
Yeah.
I'm prioritizing their questions and their healing, and not letting myself go down too many rabbit holes. And so there is always a time limit to the session and to what can come through. But this was a client where we talked about doing another session coming up, especially exploring some of this information that came through as well, because they were fascinated too.
Yeah. Oh, and have you heard any more? I don't want to say the word predictions, but have you had any more kind of look-ins or sessions that have talked about this year, 2025?
I haven't had a lot that immediate, but the when we talk about future lifetimes and kind of the future of our planet and us, I think number one, there's a lot of possibilities out there. Especially if we're looking at further incarnations or future incarnations. I've seen a lot of clients where they're going off world, and whether that is off world to a ship or to another planet. I had a client, and I can certainly say more about this, but I had a client who was doing like scientific research on one of the moons of Saturn, and that
Wow.
was really fascinating. But I've had a lot of that sort of information come through, and I think that again, we're at such a transitional point, and I think a lot of us are here to do such important work in this incarnation, and it's not only wrapping up our kind of our patterns here on Earth, but I think also setting the stage then for where we're going next, and setting that kind of path forward for our souls.
Yeah. Oh, and that just makes me think of what Corbin said before about sometimes the hypnosis sessions lining up with the astrology of the clients,
Mm,
because I know he's really into astrology. Tim's got this question as well. So it says, in regards to the Q in the QHHT, do you think the multiverse theory has validity and can account for some of the accounts OG clients, or it might be of clients, also Solreta's experience with multiverse? Oh, thank you for the question, Tim. You
Great
go first,
question.
Jake.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had a session that I kind of call the multiverse session, because this client, literally, it felt like that scene in the Doctor Strange movie, where they're like flying through different universes and multiverses, and they're like going from the underwater world to the cartoon world, and that it felt like that, because it was just so um, disjointed on like a logical level. And
Yeah.
this client was this client was actually pretty frustrated throughout most of the session, because he just kept saying, like, I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know what I'm seeing. And I'm like, do your best, just like try your best to describe to me what, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. But because it was such wild, worlds that are so different from ours, both, dimensionally and societally. I mean, just a lot of crazy stuff going on. So I think, especially with my experiences in that session and in others where we've gone other dimensional places, I would definitely say that that's probably our closest theory that matches the reality of
Yeah.
what's going on. I truly think that there's a limit to what our human brains can fit and comprehend on like a conscious level, at least at this point. And I think it's slowly changing, but there's some mysteries of the universe that are yet to be revealed to us, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's a great answer. And you've referenced the movie that I also agree. So I always talk about, our 3D timeline that we're taught, I guess, in the Earth realm, past, present, future. It's sort of that logical, linear timescape. Whereas for me, Spirit's always shown me it's like, here's your life on Sirius or Pleiades, and it's that, whole Doctor Strange multidimensional aspect that we're living all of these lives coexisting or almost kind of stacked at once. And it's the same with, potential future timelines. So even with things that, we might dream about or we might get premonitions or things like that about, sometimes things will be shown with like, I guess a huge intensity, but it doesn't always mean that they're going to come into being. And then sometimes you'll have where we can actually timeline jump or timeline shift. Do you have anything like that come up in your sessions around future where you're helping people to quantum jump or to tap into other versions of themselves that they would wish to be?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that is really integral to the future progression. And the when we're looking at, there's a couple different ways that we can go when we're exploring the future through hypnosis. One of the ways is looking at future incarnations, and I've talked about a few examples of this. It's similar to past life regression, where we're jumping into the future of your incarnational pattern. And this is really where you can tap into that more evolved version of you, that version of you that has lived this life and is on the other side of it. And it's not always that. What am I what am I thinking? So the so in the client session that I had, where my client was this scientist on the moon of Saturn. Um, when we asked their future self for advice or for guidance, or what did they have to share with my client today, the answer that came was they laughed and said, "I have nothing to do with that lifetime." And for context, this lifetime was, as much as my client could tell, about 10,000 years into the future. So it was a sizable amount of our Earth years into the future. And so we were able to, though, tap into that life, and to kind of realize the, I guess, fruition of this lifetime, because science and some of the topics that came up around career in that future lifetime tied into their current lifetime here. And it really showed how they had evolved through their lifetime, and what the possibilities were on the next adventure. And so I think that it's really amazing to tap into those future versions of yourself, and to bring back inspiration, to bring back kind of understanding for that context of your life.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to add to that.
Mhm.
So having worked with like a little bit similar, I guess, in a different format, but what I noticed was it's like when you get to, in that subconscious state that you're in hypnosis and you're fully immersed in it, you really kind of get to sample the pie, or like actually taste and experience it, rather than just trying to create it in your imagination. So I think it's super, super valuable. Have you noticed clients actually changing their lives after sessions, or having, new pathways and things open up?
Oh, absolutely. And that, that's the other part of the future progression is we can show you your future in this lifetime. And when we're going about that, it's really about looking at not only like where are you going on your current trajectory, doing things the way that you are, but we also look into your best possible future. What does that look like if you took the opportunities, you got lucky, you were in the right place at the right time, all of the stars aligned, as they say. And what does that future look like? And so it's really amazing to see the differences between where you headed now versus what is your best possible. And I would say that most of the time clients, when they're shown that, their first reaction is, I don't believe that. I can't have that. That's not for me. And I have to remind them, well, it's showing itself to you. So it is for you. It is a possibility. And I always remind folks that, it is your responsibility to build that future. It's not just going to be handed to you. You have to take the actions and you have to still follow through and follow that path. But I've certainly seen the impacts that glimpses of that best possible timeline can draw that to you and really allow you to have a feeling of confidence moving forward. And with the future progression, we draw on NLP techniques as well, and we focus on anchoring in that future timeline for you. And I know, Sol, you're an expert in NLP, so you can certainly add anything that you like. I'm
Oh no, you're actually leading into the question I was going to ask you.
Oh,
So you
amazing.
keep going. It's perfect.
Okay, so using NLP techniques and anchoring, we really kind of hone you in on that future timeline so that you're able to not only see it and glimpse it within the session, but then give you that tool to tap into it again and again. And the more regularly that you tap into that, whether it be with the visualization of the colors or wearing the colors that we associate with that future timeline, or doing like the physical anchoring where you do your finger press and anchor it in that way. That allows you to then have that tool to continue using, and the more that you use it, the more you're tapping in and focusing in on that timeline, because again, there's so many different possibilities for you, and the more that you're focused and the more that you do that homework, the more you're drawing that towards you. And I've certainly seen that when we're tapped into that and you're focused on it, usually it happens faster than you see it happening in the session itself. It might have been 10-15 years down the road. It's going to happen in 5 because you're really focused on it and you're drawing it towards yourself.
Oh, chills when you answered that one. And I'm sure like a few of our audience, so, wanting to go through these quantum jumps and thinking about booking a session with you. So we do have the link that's here as well. I'm just going to pop that back up on the screen. So do go check out Jake's website, Ray of Light Hypnosis. The other thing I want to ask you too, how do you help guide people like the anchoring technique? That's amazing. And I've worked with it and it really works. It's fantastic. How do you help people work through their resistances when they're in that state of hypnosis?
Oh, I mean, that's a big question.
It is. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think really it's about what I found helps folks the most is helping them be prepared, giving them the tips, and helping them as much as possible to understand what they're going to experience and how it could show up for them. I say a lot of times that hypnosis is such an individual experience, because it really is so
Yeah.
unique, person to person. But there are generalities. Is that a word?
I think
There
so.
are
Let's make it a word.
We'll make it a word, that you can see across different clients. And so I think preparation and making sure that the client feels comfortable and confident going into the experience is huge. And I think really too, the biggest thing, the best thing that you can do for yourself as you're going through a session, is to trust the information that's coming through,
Yeah.
because this is similar to intuition, or for those of you who read tarot cards or do other forms of divination or what have you. It really is about trusting yourself and trusting that information that's coming through. And because as soon as you start to get critical with it, or to say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense, or that can't be, then you start to shut down the flow, and it can be more challenging to continue going. It's not impossible. We can certainly get you back on track, but I think that those are some of the ways that I try to help clients, and ultimately help them help themselves, because I don't know. I think that hypnosis, all hypnosis is kind of self-hypnosis, in a sense that you have to participate, and you have to be willing going into it. It's not the mind control that they show on movies.
Yeah, definitely not. And it's, you might want to rethink it if you're sort of going at it with the mindset of, I can't be hypnotized, because already you're creating that boundary, you're creating that wall. You're not going to get the most out of your session compared to someone who's going in and is relaxing, releasing, trusting the process, really being open to being guided by you. They're going to get so much more out of their session. So this is a good mindset to have going in. And I know with myself, having done a few regressions, if you can let go and release, you just have magic happen. What would be the most kind of like Fantasia, amazing, incredible session that you've seen come up, or something that's just like out of this world that kind of left you blown away?
I there's a few things that are coming to mind. I would say one of the most wild ones that I had, again, this was a client who was not, they were open to extraterrestrial things. They were open to the idea of life out there, but they were also surprised at what came through. But they were shown, and we explored a lifetime where they were a light being, and they described their appearance as like a soft glowing light that was kind of outlined by like a black border. They described it almost as like cartoony looking, and they didn't really have all that much of like features to their face, but it was a fascinating lifetime, because we dropped in on the last day of their life, and they were lying in bed with their partner, who was another light being, and they were just really sad. And I mean, the tone shifted immediately, and they were just very depressed about it. And as we kind of dug into the story and what was going on, their planet was dying, and they had chosen, I guess, representatives from their society, and it was very class based. It was only certain families were allowed to survive this cataclysm, and so these certain families were chosen to then go and reseed another planet. My client's partner was one of those families, and he was chosen to go, and she was not. And what was fascinating too was that not only what was like this going to be the end of this light being's life because the planet was dying, but there was some sort of like link between these two beings. Their partnership was more than just like a legal agreement. And when her partner left, that signaled the end of her life. Like, she wasn't able to continue on without him. And so I don't know if you've ever had experiences with that kind of like it seemed like a soulmate kind of connection, or like just like a very deep connection. But I would say that was one of the wildest experiences that I've navigated. I mean, there's a lot of them, but that was a pretty wild one.
Oh, and there's a few questions I want to ask you. I'm just deciding which one to ask, because what you just said, like about that soulmate connection, I have seen that come up in multiple sessions. One of them that I was actually thinking about even doing a show on, there was just like a download this morning about this. So I've had a couple of clients that have got what you would call like an ET partner. And it would be a lover, a partner, a soulmate that is existing on another dimension. And I think there is a book written about this that I saw maybe 20 years ago, but it's more on dream state work and meeting like your astral lover in another dream, which I'm not fully encouraging or saying dive in, because you need discernment and you need to make sure that they love you unconditionally. They're not a trickster. But anyway, I have had legitimate clients that have had actual lovers. And one of them, the day before I read for her the first time, this Pleiadian looking being actually kind of like, not pixelated, it's not the right word, but I saw all this light gathering at the edge of my bed before going to bed at night. And I
Mm.
saw this being, blonde hair, a blue suit, standing at the bottom of my bed. And I pointed out to my partner, I'm like, can you see that? He could more sort of see like an outline, whereas like, I guess because I've seen energies all my life and auras, I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I sat down for the session and I started to tap in. I started to draw this being. And I started to say to my client, oh, this being came and appeared at the bottom of my bed, semi-pixelating into the physical from another dimension last night. She was just in shock and awe, because this is a being that she'd had, years of experience with in the physical earth and multiple different downloads of information and that. So on the bigger question, and we will come back to what Corbin's saying, because I want to hear about like your take on that side of things. But have you had clients that do have, I guess, soulmate relationships that are, whether consciously in the 3D life, communicating with them? Are you able to help them sort of get more information or to tap into that deeper? Or only those that are there for our best and highest good?
Oh, yes, yes. It's certainly possible. I mean, especially when we're on the spirit side or when we're tapped into the higher self, those are definitely moments where other beings, guides, soulmates can come through in that way. And I would say that I can help you connect. I can't necessarily force their hand in communication. I've certainly had moments where I've said, "Well, do they have a message for you?" And it's not a message; it's more like a feeling or an emotion. And so it's not always that they have like a direct message for you. Sometimes it is bringing more that emotion or giving you support or subtler interactions than a straightforward message.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And it's good because I know that, clients that are experiencing these kinds of semi-physical, I want to say, because they can actually feel them around. And I mean, with me actually seeing one start to come into our reality, they are able to, what I would say is like to juice the energy down, just like how you were talking about with that angel lifetime experience. It's like they're helping to hold the frequency. So a lot of these beings are, working with us, I guess, as protection and that too. So it's nice to be able to bridge that and to, I guess, open up a conversation while you're more attuned to the subconscious or to these other realms. So yeah, I encourage people to book a session with you for,
Yeah.
if you do want to enhance that kind of communication or your chances of getting more information or feeling an emotion.
I did
Um,
I did think of something else that I wanted to share along
yeah.
those lines too. I had one session, it was actually a really wild session too. This woman, we started the session and it was about 8 minutes in that her higher self came through and was like, I'm ready to talk." And not all of you will be familiar with the pacing of a session, but typically there's more time spent exploring past lives, getting into the regression or progression experience before then we ask to speak with your higher self. And so it was a little bit of a surprise to me when they came through. But in addition to the higher self, there was other guides that were coming through as well with messages, and there was even and I'm not super familiar. Let me know if you know, but White Tara. Do you know White Tara?
I was just talking about Green Tar yesterday.
Amazing. So White Tara
So funny
actually
to me.
came through and gave us a light language message, and so that was really really wild. I mean, the way that this client's voice changed, and it was almost like a record player where you like turn the speed up and it like you know dramatically increases in speed and then dramatically decreases in speed as this message came through, and it was just very clearly coming from a different entity than my
Wow.
client, and it was truly wild. I mean, I could feel the energy there.
Oh, that's awesome. That leads me to another question around, I know sometimes face-wise, I've seen people's energy totally shift when I've watched, on hypnosis sessions, which I've been lucky enough to be that friend that's like trusted to be in the room to take notes and things.
Mhm.
And I've seen people's face shift into more of like ET features. Is that something that you notice that clients' faces will sometimes morph or shift as they're tapping into these other lifetimes of where they are different beings?
I have seen that a little bit. I had one client, where I looked at her lying on the bed and I literally didn't recognize her. I was like, "Who is that?" That's not the same person that I was just talking to. It was
Wow.
very strange, and so that was, and in that lifetime, we tapped into, one of her incarnations as a fairy, actually, or an elf. I'm not sure exactly which, title they would have preferred, but, um it was really wild to see that physical transformation. And I'm very much used to the vocal transformations and, kind of the pacing or the ways that people talk, especially when we're going to current lifetime regression, where they regress to their childhood self. You can hear that voice change and they sound like a child.
Wow.
It's really wild.
That's just mind blowing. I can see why you were so attracted to studying this and to making it your life's work. It's one of those things I can't imagine ever getting bored
Oh
working with
no.
this subject.
Never. I mean, I think that, in a lot of different professions and a lot of different things, you're constantly learning and as you go. But this is one where I've never had a session, two sessions the same. I've never had two
Yeah.
that are even close to each other. They're all different, and it's such exciting work, and it really is such an honor, to work in this way and to help people in this way. It's it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is, and I can see Corbin saying, "Please take me to an elf lifetime." I think
Absolutely.
there's a couple of us. I can see, Tim saying, "Second that." Lisa's saying, "Right, Corbin." So there's a few of us, I think, that have probably had elves and fairy lifetimes and things together. I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
I've been a fairy before. I
Oh yeah.
have people nickname me. Actually, Lisa's family calls me the fairy. Um, so
It's
I'm
fitting.
sure, yeah, it is. So I guess it'd be great to get into. We had Corbin said before, so Jake has definitely helped me to be more open to ETs. Now, I'm not sure if he wants you to share any or if he's given you permission. Is there anything that you would like to share just around like the ET side of things?
Absolutely. This is certainly a hot topic. I think there's a lot of different opinions around ETs and, um, I guess the intentions of ETs and who they are and what they're doing. And I certainly think that, like anything in the cosmos, there's nuance and there's going to be dark and light aspects. Um, I think that a lot of times, though, there is misunderstanding in interactions, and there is, confusion, or, even just, a lack of ability to communicate or understand what exactly is going on. And I'm talking more with like abduction cases or situations where people have been taken onto crafts and gone through scientific experiments or things like that. I've certainly, in the research that I've seen and, what I've read, a lot of times there is agreement on the soul level, maybe not necessarily at the personality or conscious mind level, but there's agreement at the soul level to participate in these sorts of things, especially when we're looking at, like implants or, um, sort of like monitoring or, kind of research, work. There's a lot of times agreement on that soul level to be a part of that project or that, work with that group. And I'm reminded of, that same session where the information around ET disclosure came through, for this year. One of the things that they were saying was that, uh, there are certainly, because I said, well, are these beings nefarious? Like, are they helping or are they hurting? Like, what are they here for?
Yeah.
And what the higher self said was that of course, there's both. There's people, there's beings that are here to help. There's also beings here not to help. They said that most of the beings that are here, though, at this time at least, are here to help. And they said we are.
Oh, we've just had it freeze for a second. Hopefully it reconnects in a second. And I can see some interesting comments that are coming up at the same time. So do remember that when we sometimes are talking about high energy things, the internet can skip out. Or when we're talking about things like disclosure, which I think Jake was just starting to get into, and about intentions behind beings, it's interesting how we will sometimes lose connection to the internet. So let's just give it a moment to hopefully readjust and to come back. And whilst we're waiting for Jake to come back, what he was saying around, I guess, having sort of pre-agreements to coming in. Oh, he'll try and reconnect, I'm sure, in a second. And yeah, so in regards to having pre-agreements and things to coming in or working with the ETs or the Galactics, a lot of hybrids or a lot of starseeds will have these kind of, I guess, scientific contracts and things set up. So imagine being an ET energy and choosing to come in for a mission into physical form, a lot of the time you will actually have where there's a contract around where they can take samples, or you can actually have different, I guess, tissue taken to be part of hybrid programs. So whether it's egg or sperm, we hear things like that in abduction cases. And as Jake was saying, it's not all negative sort of trickster-based abduction experiences. So sometimes it is where there's, I guess, that pre-contract. So this is definitely something I've experienced and I haven't fully talked about before, just because a lot of things, are more of a private sort of nature. So I have shared some things with personal clients who've been through similar, but this very much can actually take place and happen on a 3D level, as well as more in the, what we would say is the astral or kind of like the dream world side of things. Hey, Jake.
I don't know.
I think it's the energy. And you also were just starting to talk a little bit about disclosure around programs and things. So I was just sharing my experience just very quickly around, I guess, being a soul that chose to come into human form for a mission. And we do usually sign up for physical samples and things being taken, or, experiments, and geneticists will actually work with us. So yeah, I just filled that gap while we're waiting for your
Thank you.
internet. Thank you for refreshing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I honestly totally lost my train of thought. So
Oh, that's okay. We were talking about, I guess, the ET side of things. Is there anything else that you want to mention that's really stood out to you? I know we've got just a little over 10 minutes left.
Mhm.
So if there's anything that you really feel that you want to share, or things that you feel are sort of, I guess, on a community level, really important for people to know right now.
Well, I think the biggest message, at least around future timelines and what is coming for us moving forward, I think number one, it's really important to remember that we chose to come here at this time. We chose these incarnations. We chose this time period. We chose our life path and what we were going to do when we were here. And so I think regardless of what does happen moving forward and how the world plays out, I think that it's really important that we remember that we chose to be here, because that allows us to take our power back and remember that we're not just victims being jerked around by a wild world. I think too, the idea that the future timelines are not fixed as well. When we're exploring the future and we're looking at those different timelines as well, there is always choice when it comes down to things, and it's not always necessarily our conscious choice. Sometimes it's that soul choice, and we're guided along our path by our oversoul, by our higher self. But I think that those two pieces are important to remember, and that that there is lots of possibilities for us out there, and we will end up on the timeline. We will end up in the future lifetimes that fit our vibration, that fit our soul trajectory, and there are so many possibilities out there because there's so many different paths that we're all taking. And so, yeah, those are a couple things that come to mind. So I think you might be muted. Are you muted?
Yeah, I am. I was sneezing. Thank you. I can see people saying bless you. I was just saying that that was such a beautiful answer. And I really feel that you were also channeling at the same time. I could just feel you in the zone. So thank you for being such a beautiful, clear channel. We've got this question from Tim. So speaking of implants, which is something I've personally had, even like show up in x-rays and things. So speaking of implants, Jake, do you think there is a future of things like QHHT or psychological healing, and your opinion, or to Solreta, to help with the ET contact language issues? So
Mm.
is there implants that perhaps help us to maybe understand? I think that's what I'm understanding from Tim's question.
He has AI in there a couple times. So I think he's talking about AI being that
Oh, yeah.
link or being that that tool that we use.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say that I'm not an AI expert. I've been a little wary of it, a little, you know, just trying to be cautious of how I choose to implement it, especially with something like QHHT or with hypnosis in general. I certainly have seen a lot of practitioners, a lot of hypnotists out there who are really excited to use it in different ways, and I've seen people developing scripts this way. I I'm not super sure about that. Just from a intention standpoint, and I think that there's magic in human consciousness, and there's something to be said about AI being like a mirror to our consciousness, or us tapping in and connecting with it. I think there's different theories out there, but I just think that especially with this type of work, it's just really important to have that human aspect. And I don't know. I mean, I could see it helping in some ways with communication, but I would say more likely than anything is we need to reach that point of telepathy and being able to communicate that way before we're going to have that direct communication, because I find it pretty unlikely that they're going to come down and try to communicate in like a verbal language to us. They might use a verbal language, but I would imagine that it's going to be more of that telepathic communication, that mind to mind connection. And I don't think that AI can help us with that.
Yeah, I like that answer. And it's also when I've had the ET interactions and contact, it's always telepathic. And it's the same like the show that I filmed with Phil the other week on my channel, the Telepathy Tapes,
Mhm.
and talking about, a lot of the autistic kids that are also very telepathic. And having worked with some of them myself that are nonverbal, they fully just are able to connect to your consciousness and place almost like movies as well as names and different things in there, and it's easier compared to our communication. So we're sort of doing like the longer, harder way of communication, which I
Mhm.
do still find interesting though, because there's vibration and frequency coming out. And we've talked about that on other shows too. And I can see Lisa saying telepathy, visuals, downloads. Yeah, it's so much faster. And the other thing I think that they can communicate is more that emotional quality when it
Mhm.
comes to the telepathic expression that you get with ETs. You pretty much find out very fast if they're more nefarious or if they're there for, higher purposes. But yeah, from my experience with the implant side of things, and we're talking about the ET, not the AI
Yeah.
side of it, it has actually helped to increase abilities. So I did go through what I would say is more heightened states of contact when there was an implant that was just in my sinuses. And I also had like visual changes when they were working with waking up to like giant needles and things coming out my eye, which sounds scary, but it actually felt filled with love and bliss. So I think some of these implants are government as well. That's the other thing to remember, or more from what we would say are hidden or black projects and things of those sort of nature.
Mhm.
If anyone has any questions, if you guys want to pop it into all caps, just so Jake and I can see them a little bit easier, or if you even just want to pop your hand up and say you've had ET contact or you've had a hypnosis session. I saw that Lynn was saying before she had a session with you just the other week as well, and it
Mhm.
seemed like she loved it from the comment.
Mhm.
Yeah. And is there anything? Oh, sorry. Is there anything you want to say, Jake?
I was just going to add along those lines with ET contact and communication. If you haven't read Dolores Cannon's work, I highly recommend it. It's really, really fascinating stuff, and all information that she gathered through her hypnosis sessions. But she wrote extensively on ETs, and she had a lot of different contacts with them through hypnosis experiences, both going through regressions, helping clients remember instances where they were missing time, or where they saw an ET and then they don't remember what happened, and all of those times, these beings that were communicating with her, with the clients, it was always telepathic. And especially when she had beings that were channeled through her clients, because she had that happen often, these beings always just spoke using the vocabulary in the client's head. And so that's something to remember too, that when you are linked mentally in that space, language isn't the same barrier that it is to us in this physical 3D world.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to place it is, sometimes it can feel like a barrier, especially if you've got that star seed energy. I find sometimes the English language being so limiting, or there's emotion and things that you wish to express, but it's like we don't have the word for things. And that's where, tapping into light language, maybe not always appropriate, if it's in like an office format or, a school situation or something of that sort of nature. But yeah, I saw Tim say, wow, this is so wonderful, needs many parts to this series. And I
I'll
do
be
have
back
an
anytime.
idea. I do have an idea that I will talk to you about off camera. Oh yeah, Corbin is saying 100% as well. So I'm sure people would love to hear more. Is there anything future timeline wise that you can think of as well that came up in another session talking about our future reality?
Yeah. Um, Another interesting part that came through in that lifetime of the scientist on the moon of Saturn was that her primary job and her primary residence was on this huge spaceship that was essentially ferrying people around the solar system and possibly beyond as well. But she took this ship from Earth to Saturn and described it as almost as big as like a small planet. And it was so large that there was like a lake on there was a forest, like they had full ecosystems on this ship. And it reminded me of Star Trek, and some of those scenes where they have the little like courtyard with the river. And I don't know, maybe are you a Star Trek fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But it was a fascinating, like digging into that information. And at first she didn't realize why she couldn't really see Earth. She couldn't get really a sense of what was going on there. And then she realized, oh, it's because I don't go there. I was born there, but most of my time is spent on this ship. And another really fascinating part of that was that she said a few times that her lifespan was much longer than ours. And because of that, as well as some of the ways that the society was structured, there was really no like hustle bustle pressure to like be productive, or to like be super nose to the grindstone. It was more like doing the work that you want to do and putting in the appropriate effort because you're passionate about what you're doing, without the same competition based structures that we have now, where people feel all of this pressure to compete, and oh well, I need to do more because other people are doing more. And it's just it was just very much a shift in the way that the culture was structured. And I think that the lifespans, I think a lot of us feel that is we're moving towards that, I think, quicker than not. But yeah, those were some fascinating pieces that came through in that session as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. And that's similar to what I've seen in some sessions and from my own personal contact experience. And one of my friends has a very similar contact experience too. So, yeah, imagine a world where we actually get to do what we love, like I think you and I are both very blessed that we get to do that. But imagine if you didn't have that pressure, I guess, if we lived in a more freer, abundant version of the earth, or a utopia version. And I just want to highlight,
Mhm.
I think it was Britt Marie said, I've had a visit from one of the white heart. I think it's like a heart-shaped head being. So I've
Mm.
seen these as well. I actually drew one and put it on something just recently. I can't remember what show I shared that on. But yeah, there's so many different types of beings, and it really is
Mhm.
like Star Trek out of there.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Mhm.
Fascinating information as always talking to you. And I will share your channel. So if you guys haven't already subscribed, make sure to head over to Jake Ray Hypnosis and go and show some love over on his channel. You guys could just watch for days and days and be filled in on witch lifetimes and light bodies and, other things, as well as like releasing trauma, which is very, very important, especially to get our work done down here in the earth realm. And there's the meditations there. But if you do want to book a session, come over to Ray of Light Hypnosis, which we had up before, and you can book your consultation there. And I just want to remind you guys to also show the love on Mason Jupiter and give us a thumbs up and share this out to anyone that you know might be interested in hypnosis or the ET subject, because it is one that there are a few conversations and things online, but it doesn't always get into the nitty gritty around the ET side of things, or to hear just the way that you put it together so eloquently as well. And I do have sessions available. So if you want to book a session, head over to Mason Jupiter. Please use the code word Jupiter so that you save 10%. And it is a really good time to book before this Venus retrograde, especially to tidy up things around soul contracts, relationships, karmic side of things. So I do encourage to get your booking in before then. As well as working with your focus and intention for this year. It's a really, really good time for sessions in general. Is there anything that you want to leave us with tonight, Jake?
I think that the biggest thing, or the last thought that's coming into my head, is in regards to past lives and future lives. I think that it's really important to remember that uh, we oftentimes need to release and let go of the past in order to be able to move into that future. And so if you're feeling like there's blocks, or feeling like there's still something lingering, or you're feeling that draw to the past, like past life regression is going to be super important in order to help you to be able to access and tap into those best possible futures. Because once you release that, then it opens up whole new possibilities for you going forward into the future. So moving back and forth in time, of course, it's not as linear as we understand it from our perception, but understanding it in that way, I think, can help to conceptualize it. So other than
Yeah.
that, truly thank you so much, Soul. This has been an honor, and it's been so fun to spend the evening with Soul Family.
Oh, thank you. And just thank you so much for sharing your experience working with clients and your firsthand personal experience as well. And how lucky are we? I mean, look at this. Yeah, we love you guys. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Jake. And I'm sure everyone will look forward to you coming back and doing a part 2. So just sending lots of love out to everyone. You guys have a lovely weekend, and make sure to check out Jake's website as well. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.